Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast. I'm Kristin, and I'm here to challenge how you think, lead, and show up. Because this isn't about surface level success. This is about clarity, alignment, and making decisions that actually move your life forward. If you're ready to stop performing and start leading with real intention, then you are in the right place, my friends. Hey friends, welcome back to the Savvy Leader Podcast. I'm Kristin Gallatin. I'm your host, and I'm so glad that you're here this week because I really want to have a different kind of conversation with you. Over the last several weeks, I have found myself reflecting on change, transitions, and what it means to really recalibrate when life doesn't go according to the plan. As many of you know, the theme inside our community during the month of May was courageous conversations. Ironically, though, one of the most courageous conversations that happened last month involved me. It did. A friend and client needed to have a difficult conversation. And after listening to one of my Friday Weekend Wisdom short videos, she felt inspired to pick up the phone and give me the call. We needed to talk about the sale of her vineyard property. I had it listed for sale, and she had decided it might be time to use a different realtor. That's right. If you're a realtor or if you're anybody in the service industry, you know that that can be a really hard conversation to receive. And it was, but not really, because I recognized it as well. I wasn't the right fit to sell this awesome vineyard niche property, and I was so glad that she had the courage or bravery to give me a call and talk about it. The funny part was she got the courage to call because of the video that I created about courageous conversation. So ironically, I taught her how to fire me. That realization didn't dawn on me until a few days after the conversation. We're, of course, still friends, but it dawned on me that I had essentially taught someone how to fire me. I can laugh about it now, not because losing a client is necessarily funny, but because life has a way of teaching us lessons in such unexpected ways. As I reflected on that experience, I realized it wasn't really about losing a client. It was more about recognizing that change had been showing up everywhere in my life lately. Some changes had been small, like transitioning my wardrobe from business to RV life. Some were more significant, some expected, and some arrived without any warning at all. All of them, though, had been asking the same question. What happens when your life outgrows your plan? One thing I've learned over the years is that change rarely sends a calendar invitation. It tends to show up in clusters, I would say groups of 3. And while I was reflecting on that business transition, I was also considering what role real estate then would play in my future. For the first time, I am seriously exploring the idea of putting my license on hold while I focus more intentionally on building the online side of my gig. And that doesn't come easy. We build businesses from a passion. And I'm passionate about real estate. I was a broker, I had my own gig. I was independent, doing my thing my way. So to think about allowing that to slip away, that doesn't come easy. And at the same time, our home has been undergoing some repairs and it left us displaced for well over a week. That kind of displacement, when you're not ready for it, we had thought a couple days, maybe a few, but not 8 or 9. And couch surfing was not really in the cards. And it keeps you feeling stable. Your foundation then is kind of rocked, and you have a hard time grasping at things that you take for granted that you're surrounded by. I did get the opportunity to spend some time with my mom, though. She's 85, and actually, for the first time in her life, she's living on her own, solo. It's a huge transition for her. I've also been planning travel months into the future, thinking about where we will be 6 months from now or even a year, at the same time wondering where all the time has gone. I think about family. I think about being present or not present when I really want to be. And I think about the tension between building something meaningful and also not missing the moments that matter the most. None of these things are catastrophic, you guys, but collectively, they create something really important. They create a real moment of deep reflection. A moment where you have to stop and ask, am I still building a life that fits who I am today? Or am I still operating from a blueprint that was created by someone I used to be? Spending time with my mom has brought a lot into perspective. Watching a woman of her age navigate a season of independence has caused me to think so differently about time. When you're younger, a year can feel like forever. In your 20s or 30s, I used to say, long days, short years. But now I find myself scheduling travel 6 months and a year out, and those dates arrive almost immediately. It feels like I blink and another season has just passed by. Maybe it's part of growing older. Maybe it's part of becoming more aware that time is finite. Whatever the reason, it's made me so much more intentional about asking better questions. Not just what do I want to accomplish, but how do I want to live? Who do I want to become? What do I want to be remembered for? What relationships deserve more of my attention? And what matters enough to carry forward into the next season? Because success doesn't really mean much if we aren't able to be fully present for the life that we're building. One of the biggest mistakes I see people make during transitions is assuming that they're going to have to start completely over. But most of the time, you guys, that's not true. I have a friend who's mentioned to me that she misses running. She wants to start running and incorporating running into her life again. Years ago, running was really meaningful for her. It was her identity. It was just who she was, getting up in the morning and doing the run. It was great for her health. It cleared her mind. It gave her confidence and energy. The challenge now isn't that she no longer values running. The challenge now is that she's trying to figure out how to fit running into her current life because it's part of the old version of her. Now she has different responsibilities and priorities and completely different energy. She's in a different season. I think many of us do this constantly. I think we try to recreate an old chapter rather than asking what made that chapter meaningful in the first place. Maybe the goal isn't really running for her. Maybe it's the movement. Maybe it's the health. Maybe it's just time for her to think and clear her head. Maybe she just wants to feel that strength again. The activity may evolve while the purpose remains the same. And I've realized there are things I miss from earlier seasons of my own life, routines and rhythms that I loved, some that just were comfortable and I relied upon, certain ways of working. But instead of trying to recreate them exactly as they were, I'm learning to ask what was valuable about that experience. What did it fulfill for me? How can I bring that fulfillment forward in a way that fits me today? That is what recalibration looks like, friends. It isn't starting over, it's realigning. This realization has shown up in my work as well. For years, I've helped people build businesses and grow careers and pursue their dreams. But lately, I have been thinking about a different question. Does the work still fit the person? Or has the person been bending themselves to fit the work? I think a lot of us do this without even realizing it. We build a business, take a job, accept a role, or even pursue an incredible opportunity. And over time, we begin organizing our entire identity around it. Eventually, we stop asking whether it still aligns with who we've become. And that doesn't mean that something is necessarily wrong. It simply means we've changed, we've grown, we've evolved. One of the reasons I'm reflecting on real estate right now is because I still love it. I still want to help people in that way. It meant so much to me to help people along that part of their life. But I'm asking whether it aligns with the life that I'm trying to build moving forward. I believe that the work should fit into who we are, not the other way around. You come before the work. The work must mold itself around you. Because every time we continually reshape our lives to fit a life that no longer aligns with us, we lose a little piece of ourselves in that process. All of these reflections brought me back to one of the most difficult seasons of my life. Several years ago, a motorcycle crash changed almost every part of my world. At the time, I thought the hardest part would be managing the logistics, medical care, finances, businesses, caregiving. What I didn't realize was the hardest part would actually be learning how to recalibrate my world. I remember sleeping at my aunt's house 3 nights on and then one night at home and then 3 nights on. She lived 10 or 15 minutes from the hospital where Eric was at, and I did that for almost 2 months. I remember trying to maintain our businesses while simultaneously realizing I was going to need to shut them down and make a huge change that way. I remember learning how to navigate insurance company processes, pharmaceutical systems, hospital systems, and all the other systems that suddenly became my responsibility during a crisis I didn't know anything about navigating. I remember driving across town searching for anything that might help relieve pain. I remember sleeping on the couch because after hours of just sheer agony, Eric would finally fall asleep and I didn't want to wake him. And I took that time to really think about where we were and where we were headed. I remember learning how to communicate with doctors. I remember learning when to advocate, when to ask, and what to ask the questions. Learning how to keep my mouth shut so Eric could tell the story his way, and then filling in the blanks if I needed to. I remember the uncertainty. A level of uncertainty that forces you to confront how little control you actually have. I also remember something else. I remember realizing that life was never ever going to be the same as it was before that day. Strangely enough, though, the more that settled in, the freer I felt and the easier it was to plan what life needed to look like instead of trying to continue to recreate the life that we had. I started paying more attention to the life we were going to have instead. And then better questions emerged. What still works? What really matters? What do we carry forward? What can we carry forward? What really needs to change? Today, looking back, there's a few things that I know for sure. I know that life changes dramatically. Your first job is not to figure out the rest of your life. Your first job is just to figure out today. The next conversation, the next decision, the next step. I know that recalibration is not about replacing your life. It's about realigning your life. It's about carrying forward what still matters while allowing it to evolve into something that fits your current reality. I know that every season changes us, and what worked 5 years ago may not work today, especially when it comes to tech. What energizes us then may not fit who we are now. I know that work must fit into who we are, not the other way around. I know that most people are stronger than they think, not because they have all the answers, but because human beings are remarkably adaptable. One conversation, one decision, one day at a time. And perhaps most importantly, I know there were many moments when I wasn't strong enough on my own. Moments when fear, grief, uncertainty, and sheer exhaustion outweighed anything I could carry myself. And in those moments, I know that God was carrying me. Not because the path became easier, but because there was always enough strength for the next step. Just not the whole journey. Even though I believed that I was built for crises just like that, God carried me when I needed Him. Just the next step. And sometimes that's enough. As we move through the middle of the year, I'd like to leave you with 5 simple questions. Set aside just 15 quiet minutes this week and reflect on them as honestly as you can. What has changed for you? What is it that just no longer fits anymore? What really matters right now, today? And what needs to be redesigned? What is your best next step? Maybe nothing is wrong. Maybe life is simply inviting you to recalibrate too. And maybe clarity isn't something you find. Maybe clarity is something you create through reflection, alignment, and intentional action. Thanks so much, you guys, for spending this time with me today. Until next time, remember that every season changes us. The goal isn't to avoid the change. The goal is to remain connected to who you are while the change is happening. Take care, and I'll see you next time. Until then, continue moving forward to find that true north. Be well. Thanks for listening to the Savvy Leader Podcast. If something in this conversation made you think differently, that's the point. Share this episode with someone who needs it and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's next. For more conversations on clarity, alignment, and real leadership, connect with me through the SavvyLivingNetwork.com and join the conversation at the Savvy Leaders Lounge on Substack. Until next time, lead with intention.